His family lost his dad, who was really close to him and was a huge influence on him as a fighter. They made plans together, including this being the 30th fight, and it took place, and it was symbolic. And I think that gave him the focus to go out and perform the way he did. He may change his mind at a later date, but I salute him for going out giving us an amazing performance under tough circumstances.
Now, this is ESPN that you were watching, but when it's Jalen and Jacoby, sometimes it turns into the Cardinals News Network. That's right, we picked the Cardinals weeks ago and decided this was going to be our team, and it paid off last night in a crazy back-and-forth overtime win for those Cardinals, with Kyler Murray out Russell Wilson. Jalen, what did you see from the young quarterback for the Cardinals?
I saw the Cardinals actually coronate a franchise quarterback in Kyler Murray. And his leadership and the command that he has on his teammates and the respect that he's garnering, not only throwing the football, but running the football. When you add an all-pro receiver like DeAndre Hopkins to go in the Cliff Kingsbury system, and you have veterans like Larry Fitzgerald, this young man has grown into himself. And so now to see that evolution and play against somebody like Russell Wilson, who basically was the shorter quarterback who paved the way. They both played baseball at some point in their careers, and for them to show up on that stage and be led by Kyler Murray, it's refreshing to see him become a franchise quarterback.
Early in this game, it did feel like the Seahawks would dominate and maybe it would be a ho-hum victory for the Seahawks. They would stay undefeated, but nope, the Seahawks refused to play a normal football game. There were so many weird things that happened in this game, so many mistakes, like Kingsbury kicking a field goal on second down. On second down, kicking a field goal, however, Russell Wilson made some mistakes, and none bigger than this one with only a minute left in overtime. Look at this pass. I mean, this is just like there's just over a minute left in overtime, and he throws a terrible interception. It wasn't his only interception on the day. He had three interceptions. I don't know if he's exactly a lock for the MVP after this performance. What do you think about Russell Wilson last night?
And again, going into this game, I told you that the Cardinals do a great job of defending the deep ball, and Russell Wilson was the best at doing it. And also, they make you pay for those mistakes. That's the key. A lot of times, players that end up playing defensive backs are converted wide receivers from Pop Warner or high school because they didn't have hands. And so for the Cardinals, there's one thing to be in position. It's another thing to take it to the house. And those guys were making big-time plays against Russell Wilson, and that's crucial when you're trying to get a win on Sundays.
Buda Baker was on his way to the house until DK Metcalf tracked him down with an unreal play that, had the Seahawks won, we would have been celebrating for the rest of the season. However, it was Kyler Murray leading the Cardinals to this victory. There's one thing that happened during this game that people are discussing that I need to get your take on, because it is controversial. Our guy, DeAndre Hopkins, caught a touchdown with one-on-one on the left sideline of the field, and right before Kyler Murray let go of the ball, people are saying he smiled. I'm not so sure. Take a look at this. Does Kyler Murray smile when he sees DeAndre Hopkins in one-on-one coverage before he lets go of this bomb?
He 1,000% smiled, dog. Because when you're in the pocket, that's a time of anguish. It's so many things that are happening around you, and most of them you cannot control. And every now and then he sat back and was like, wait a minute. They traded him to me this offseason? And he's in one-on-one coverage. Look how his eyes got bright. He looked back twice. Look at him. Smile for me now, like Tupac would say. And that's great to see that chemistry between those young two people. Imagine what somebody was watching. You know what? What do you think Deshaun Watson was thinking when he saw that? Oh, man, at least he got his bread.
Well, there is now only one team left in the NFL that is undefeated, and that is in the AFC, where two big teams in the AFC clashed on Sunday, with the Steelers eventually getting the win and establishing themselves as the top team in the AFC, at least record-wise. What do you like about this team right now in the season?
So there's so many players, in particular in baseball, basketball, and football, that get the fortune of getting drafted by or playing for a storied franchise. When you usually do that, you're going to have success that's bigger than you. And that's a lot of times what happens with the Steelers. The stability at coaching. Now Mike Tomlin is in the conversation for best coaches in the game. You have a Super Bowl winning quarterback that you drafted. And now you're developing all of these players from within. Running backs that you drafted, Juju that you drafted, Washington, Claypool, all of these people that are a part of the fabric of what you do. And then you look across the landscape of the NFL. You remember they were the killer bees, Jacoby? Ben is still there and they're undefeated. Now, Brown and Bell have had to reinvent themselves at multiple spots, from being the best receiver and one of the best running backs to now contributing to contending teams. That's how fast the league comes at you. Pittsburgh kept it steady. They're 6-0, the only undefeated team in the NFL.
You mentioned Claypool, you mentioned Juju Smith-Schuster. I believe you meant Johnson when you said Washington. However, they don't just draft on the offensive side of the ball. T.J. Watt and Bud Dupree are the best defensive duo in the league on the line, in my opinion, but it was Watt yesterday who just seemed to be in the backfield blowing everything up every other snap. Look at him right there swiping after the ball, causing problems for Tannehill. He was a huge part of this victory, and the Steelers really truly do look like a very well-rounded team that is ready to challenge the Ravens and the Chiefs for the top spot in the AFC at the end of the year. However, staying in the division and turning our attention to the Cleveland Browns, we have some breaking news that Odell Beckham Jr. has a torn ACL and will be out for the season. It was this play, kind of a freak accident, that put him out for the season, also put him out for the game. Coincidentally, after he was out for the game, Baker Mayfield went on a tear. He was 22 for 23 with the only incompletion being a spiked ball, and then he threw this ball to Peoples-Jones in the end zone to win the game over the Bengals. But Jalen, we start with Odell Beckham Jr. How does this injury impact him and the Cleveland Browns moving forward?
When Odell's in the huddle with Baker Mayfield, because he's considered one of the best at what he does, and Odell looks at him, it's more of a want. But without Odell, it's a need from everyone else. And that's when you see a guy like Peoples-Jones making his first catch of the season as a game-winning TD. Because now as a quarterback, Jacoby, he gets to assess the football play and decide who I'm going to spray the ball to, and not necessarily have to cater to my number one receiver. Now, this shouldn't be the case for a guy that plays that position, but mentally this does happen for some of those quarterbacks. And Baker clearly fell into that category yesterday.
Absolutely. I think there is something to be said for the fact that when you have a superstar receiver, and I'm calling Odell Beckham Jr. a superstar, he has had that production with the Giants, that you sort of, he's in your mind. Are we getting him the ball enough? Is he getting enough touches? Are we running enough plays for him? Are they doubling him? And when you sort of free of that sort of burden as a quarterback, you really spread the ball around, which you see him do. He threw to Higgins, and he threw a great touchdown to Njoku. He did a lot of things that sort of freed him up. He didn't have an incomplete pass. Now, if I'm not going to say a team is ever going to be better without Odell Beckham Jr. That will never be said. If you have Odell Beckham Jr., you are better than if you don't have Odell Beckham Jr. But there are some side benefits